City is Zewike. The top stories tonight. In major policy shift, Federal Executive Council approves framework mandating MDAs to prioritize local goods and services. Presidency folds AFDB's Adewumi Adesina's claim of Nigeria's retrogression since independence. Togolese protesters march against constitutional changes that seek to keep President Faure Gnassingbé in power indefinitely.
In business, Nigeria to establish National Cocoa Management Board to boost local production.
And in sports, anticipation builds ahead of the 2022 National Sport Festival as invited junior athletes are set to make historic debut as the 38th state.
Welcome. Tonight begins now. We begin tonight in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where President Bola Tinubu on Monday approved a policy mandating all federal ministries, departments and agencies to give absolute priority to Nigerian goods, services and know-how when spending public funds. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, revealed this to State House correspondents after Monday's Federal Executive Council meeting at the Aso Rock Villa in Abuja. The minister said the directive, quote, puts Nigeria at the center of every kobo the government spends, noting that an executive order to give it full legal force will be issued within days.
This is a proposal by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on what he calls the renewed hope Nigeria First policy, meaning that Nigeria is going to be at the center going forward of all business activities relating to this country. If there are any businesses to be done by anybody, the priority will be Nigerian first. If you have any local content, there is no reason for you to go outside this country to import. Now, this is in the form of an executive bill that will soon be issued by Mr. President. Already, Council has approved a set of those proposals, which I'm going to read to you, and the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation has been directed to prepare an executive order to be issued by Mr. President. Now, this seeks to foster a new business culture that will be bold, confident, but also very, very Nigerian.
President of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, has come under fire for his recent comments on Nigeria's post-independence development. Presidential aide Bayo Onanuga criticized Adesina's claim that Nigerians are worse off today than in 1960, calling it based on figures that do not align with available data. In a post on X on Monday, Onanuga challenged Adesina's comparison of GDP per capita between 1960 and 2025, describing it as both flawed and misleading. He cited data indicating that Nigeria's GDP in 1960 stood at $4.2 billion with a population of 44.9 million, putting per capita income at just $93. To discuss this, I'm joined now by business development and investment expert, Dr. Nnemeka Obiariri. It's good to have you on the news tonight. Thanks for obliging us. How do you respond to Onanuga's criticism of Adesina's assessment? Do you agree with Adesina in the first place about Nigeria's progress or retrogression, as you may like to define it?
To be very honest, I found, I see by Ononuga's intervention and response as very infantile. And it's not, in fact, if I am Mr. President, I would have fired him because his response was so infantile and never addressed any of the issues. Akinwumi Adesina, on record, is one of the most decorated technocrats to come out of Nigeria. He was a minister in Nigeria, and we saw his impact as Minister for Agriculture. He was one of the champion ministers under the Jonathan's regime. Of course, FDB saw his achievements and engaged him to become the president of African Development Bank. Every of his observations apt, correct, and it's not something anybody can begin to play infantile games on. I want to even break it down further. As of 1970, the GDP of South Korea was $3.9 billion. Nigeria GDP was about $9.3 billion. Nigeria GDP was about $12.4 billion. 1970. As of 1980, we are at par with South Korea. Today, South Korea GDP, 58 million people, is $1.71 trillion. Nigeria GDP is less than $200 billion. What any sane person will have expected Adenuga to do was to address the kernel of the issue. The problem did not start with the Tinubu regime. A very creative, honest, sincere spokesperson for the government will have simply acknowledged that what Akinwumi Adesina said was correct. Then take out to trace the origin. It did not start with the Tinubu regime. Buhari was the one who wrecked Nigeria before Tinubu inherited the mess. What he would have done was honestly and sincerely acknowledge the rot. Yes, Adesina was right in his submissions. What he would have done was, yes, Adesina, you are right. Look at the issues. Look at what brought us to where we are. Look at what we are doing to correct the situations. And people will understand it. Trying to draw the infantile line Adesina is would be like in his submission. In fact, if I am Tinubu, I will have fired by Analoga. But anyway, we are in Nigeria. We are incompetence, where mediocrity is elevated over competencies and excellence.
All right.
I align 100% into
he is a spokesman for the presidency, and like you rightly pointed out, Dr. Adesina also has a pedigree that should be respected. But talk to us about the economic indicators that support Dr. Adesina's claims.
See, let me be upfront with you. I was looking at the records. As at February 15th, 2015, I saw the receipt of one of my subordinates who traveled from Lagos to Onitsha. He spent 3,500 to ride from Onitsha to Lagos to Onitsha, GEO Motors. Today, to move from Lagos to Onitsha, you have to spend 52,000 naira. A bag of rice when Buhari became president, 50 kg was 8,500. Today is about 90,000 to 100,000. Every economic indicator as measured by the agent looks south. They are all going south. There's nothing to write home about. See, and of course, sincerely, nobody can wholly blame Tinubu for what the mess is. You know, I'm an employer of labor. I always, one of the ways that I speak to my subordinates, please look at the issue. There's nothing like an honest, there's nothing wrong in admitting an honest mistake. Tinubu was very sincere when he removed subsidy. I want to believe it. Tinubu was very sincere when he decided to remove the criminal arbitrage regime that was there under Buhari, when you had official market rate at 430 naira to $1, and then the parallel market at 720. That created room for people to criminally cream out and round trip Nigerian and destroy the Nigerian value of the naira. But basically, what he did not do in removing subsidy, in devaluing the currency, he never looked at reducing cost of governance and ensuring our productivity in the rail sector. I expected by Ononuga, if I am to be the spokesman of the Tinubu government, I will have clearly, honestly admitted Adesina is correct. But this is what led us to where we are, articulating it clearly from 1990 now, and this is what we are doing to right the wrongs. All right. But unfortunately, just like anything in Nigeria.
All right, I wanted you to speak to the comparison between Adesina, describing Adesina as a politician and comparing him in the rhetorics that he put forward to the Labour Party presidential candidate in the previous election, Peter Obi. Some had said that was not such a complimentary remark in the way it was put. What's your response to Additional, in this sense, being tagged as perhaps having a political agenda?
Additional does not have any political agenda, and for crying out loud, there is nothing P2B has said that is not the truth. Peter simply said to make Nigeria work. See, the problem we have is not the issue of spending, but the issue we have is the issue of purposeless and criminal spending. There was a World Bank assisted global integrated development master plan that was developed in 2007 that clearly stated that for Nigeria to be able to move from the current poverty-stricken fourth world level to second world level, we need to have $3 trillion capital investment over the next 30 years, $100 billion investment into the critical sectors of Nigeria. P2B simply said the same thing Additional said, and P2B has always been very consistent. The problem we have is not the problem of spending or borrowing. The problem is the criminal spending and criminal borrowing. Nigeria needs at least $100 billion capital investment, sustained, consistent.
Okay. I think we've lost Dr. Biariri. Okay, Doctor, just one last one before we go. I know you've alluded to it already, but I just need you to expand a little more. How has Nigeria's political structure impacted its progress and, by extension, the economy under discuss now?
The problem we have in Nigeria is that we have mostly round peg in square holes. This country does not lack the natural resources, the human capital, and all the mix required to make it a first world economy. As of 1960s, we were expected to, within the next 20 years, to be rubbing shoulders with the likes of the USSR and the USA. We are where we are today because of paucity of good leadership and poor followership. If we want to make progress, we must be very sincere. We are not where we're supposed to be. Today, if Nigeria was to grow at the same pace as South Korea, today we'll be talking about a $2.7 trillion economy. As of 1990, we're at par with Brazil. Today, Brazil has over $2.2 trillion economy. We have less than 200 billion. Nigeria can actually be a $1 trillion economy over the next 2, 4, 5 years. But Mr. President must be sincere. He needs to fire a lot of people within his cabinet. In fact, 80% of the cabinet of Bola Tinubu should go. They are not even helping him. Bola Tinubu is not the cause of Nigerian wars. Nigeria started decaying in 2015. Buhari is actually the albatross of Nigeria. I expect those who work with him to be sincere. Look, if I am them, I will have asked Additional. So tell us, sit down with us, tell us what you think we can do to salvage the economy. Trying to ravage or destroy Additional, paint him in the P2B has been very consistent. In fact, let me tell you the truth. If these people who work with President Tinubu are sincere, and they've implemented the things Additional and P2B have many times advocated, Nigeria will not be where we are today. But the problem we have leak-spittling clowns. I will use the word clowns, leak-spittling clowns, like the one
I get your point. I think
who said that Tinubu will get 70%. On what basis?
Yeah, what you've said is what some analysts have also put on the table, that the government should consider reducing the cost of governance and, of course, maybe reshuffling a cabinet. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Dangote laments efforts by some cabals to frustrate operations in his refinery. We'll bring you details of that story and much more after this time out. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. In major policy shift, Federal Executive Council approves framework mandating MDAs to prioritize local goods and services. Presidency folds AFDB's Adewumi Adesina's claim of Nigeria's retrogression since independence. Togolese protesters march against constitutional changes that seek to keep President Faure Gnassingbe in power indefinitely. President of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, says he is still battling for the soul of his $20 billion refinery as he is in an intense fight against cabals that have asserted themselves on the operations of facility. Dangote, who was speaking at Investor Forum in Lagos on Friday, reportedly noted that some individuals who had made a lot of money from government-subsidized oil imports into Nigeria were the ones trying to sabotage the 650,000 barrels per day oil refinery. Dangote was quoted as saying that those groups have funded resistance to the Bola Tinubu government's removal of petrol subsidies and are opposed to the refinery operating easily in the country. Dangote, however, expressed confidence that a battle between him and the groups would be won, priding himself as a long-time fighter. Let's get some perspective. We're joined now by Izielem Agbon, a professor of petroleum engineering. He joins me from Dallas, Texas. It's good to have you on the news tonight. Talk to us about your view of this continuing alluding to a cabal that is stopping Dangote or trying to stop him from doing business in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me. I guess we ask ourselves some simple question. Does an oil cabal really exist? Yes, it does. It is made up of international interest or companies that have been involved in the past in the importation of petrol into our country. They have local partners and they have partners within NNPC. And over the years, over the last 20 years, they have contributed to the decay and the neglect of our foreign government-owned refinery in order to create a scarcity of petroleum product, petrol, so that they can import it at international price and make very, very good profit. Now, the entrance of Dangote into the market creates a problem for them because it's now domestic production, and Dangote is a competitor with them. They were importing 70% of the petrol that came into West Africa were loaded from Rotterdam and from Northwest Europe. That means our crude oil goes to Europe, is refined there, and then it is imported into the country by local people with international partners. We're talking a lot of money. For instance, in 2021, NNPC had 16 groups of companies that form a consortium. They imported into Nigeria petrol, and in the process, NNPC made a profit of about $2 billion. But NNPC came back and told government that, no, we did not make a profit. We actually made a loss due to subsidy and charged the government $2.9 billion of subsidy, which they refused to give to the government. So basically, these people were having it in two ways. They were importing petrols, making a profit, and then lying to the government that there was subsidy. There was no subsidy. There's just pure corruption. So when the Tinubu government came in, it decided to raise the price of petrol because he claimed it was removing subsidy. But just like I said, there was no subsidy. For instance, if somebody comes and steals your money when you are selling in a store, you do not deal with the thief by raising the price of the goods in your store. You stop the thief from stealing the money you have gotten from your consumers. So when Dangote came in, Dangote now is producing and therefore interrupting these people control of the Nigerian market, which was almost 100%. Dangote can produce for the whole of Nigerian market. Now Dangote is producing a capacity of producing 53 million liters a day. Our demand for the whole of Nigeria is about 45 million liters a day. Dangote right now is only producing 70%, just like 30 million liters a day. So what is happening now is that Dangote is selling at oligopolistic prices. The importers are fighting Dangote because Dangote is taking their share of the market. But I want to say one thing which is very important. The oil cabal are fighting for their own interests, not to the interests of Nigerian people. Nigerian people want low petrol prices so that food prices can come down, transportation prices can come down, and all this inflation can come down. So Dangote is fighting for Dangote interests. Nobody is fighting for the interests of Nigerian people. It's like two elephants fighting, and none of them really has the Nigerian interest at heart.
That's an important point, Doc. That's a very important point you're making. It is business at the end of the day. Cabal or no cabal, everybody wants something that will be beneficial to them. The ordinary man might not factor in as much in the larger scheme of things. So talk to us. Is it possible for, this might sound naive, but is there an alternate universe where these people can actually find a way to work together as against working against Dangote's growth?
No. The thing for us to do, first and foremost, our priority must be to protect the interests of Nigerian people. Then second priority is to protect Dangote against the oil cabal. First and foremost, the Nigerian people. How do we protect the Nigerian people? We set up antitrust law, which means anybody that wants to form an oligopoly or a monopoly has to be controlled. It can't be done at the level of the people. You know, if Dangote can sell, the last time I look at this, Dangote could sell at 790 naira per liter and make a good profit. So if Dangote is selling at 835 per liter, which is about 50 cents per liter, Dangote is making oligopolistic profit. In Nigeria, we should not be importing petrol at all. So government, the first thing government should do is to stop the importation of PMS, just outright, because we don't really have an excuse of doing that. What we should do is to make sure our 4 refineries, which are owned by NNPC, are operational, and then encourage other large refineries, like the one being done privately by BUA. So if we have Dangote refinery at 650,000 barrels a day, we have BUA at 200,000 barrels a day, and we have our 4 refinery at 455,000 barrels a day. We can not only meet national demand, we take over demand in the whole of West Africa. But corruption has stopped the repair of our 4 refineries. Okay. Corruption have encouraged the continuous importation of petrol into the country. The mere fact that Dangote is having competitors with the oil cabal, suddenly Dangote have become an activist. Those of us who opposed so-called removal of oil subsidy clearly told government that it will cause suffering to the people, and that the problem was corruption, that the problem was not low petroleum prices. They were comparing Nigeria to Ghana instead of comparing Nigerian prices to other oil producers in OPEC.
All right.
So if you compare prices of petrol in Nigeria with most of OPEC country, we have very high prices.
I really hate to interrupt you, but I have to ask this question. You've already established, it seems a deeply entrenched establishment interest. That's what we're looking at here. Should we be looking at it purely as politics, or does it call for perhaps criminal investigation and prosecution for all these activities that is hindering the ordinary Nigerian from accessing crude oil?
It calls for criminal persecution. If you set up a legislation that is antitrust law, and you set it up clearly, like they did in US when they had a similar problem, for breaking those laws and doing anything that is contrary to competition, you pay $10 million and you serve time in jail. But in Nigeria, you cannot have a situation where some people are above the law. It's not the rule of law. And everybody feels some people are so powerful, they can get away with anything. You cannot have a situation where you are repairing 4 refineries, and then for years and years you are spending money. Nobody is going to jail. No investigation is being made. Then today we see in the paper that it's $10 billion, 10 billion naira fund in somebody's account. Tomorrow, 2.5 billion was spent on Port Harcourt. Then 3 years later, it's 1.5 billion. Everybody says, I did not start the problem. The problem started in 1950. The problem started in 2007. Well, everybody knows there's a problem. When you run for leadership, you solve the problem. So the question you asked me, example have to be shown. Those who are seen to have broken the law or done things that are contrary to the interests of ordinary Nigerian people, like all those who were found to have broken the law and brought in and were corrupt when Ahmed Tarouk investigation was done in 2012. None of them were punished. People should be sent to serious time in jail, and it should be done publicly. I mean, powerful people should be punished. If not, if you have a country where those who are in power are above the law, then you cannot really have development, you cannot grow. All this talk of economic improvement is just theory.
Prof, this is a very serious issue, and I know if I let you, you have so much to share with us. But for now, let's take away the message that accountability, we have to work on it, checks and balances and prosecution where necessary. Thank you, as always, for obliging us.
And they should reduce the price of petrol for ordinary people.
Definitely. We look forward to that one. Still ahead, court dismisses Sudan genocide case against United Arab Emirates. That's after the break. Stay with us. Glad you're still with us. In a night that sparkled with legacy, innovation and forward-looking ambition, Wema Bank marked its remarkable 80th anniversary in Lagos. The event brought together leading figures from finance, business, government and entertainment to celebrate a journey that began in 1945. News Central's correspondent Bettina Uweli was there and filed in this report.
From humble beginnings to becoming Nigeria's oldest indigenous bank, Wema Bank has not only endured, it has flourished. The evening served as a vibrant tribute to 8 decades of excellence and digital transformation.
When we speak about 80, we are not just counting numbers. We speak of generations, we speak of seasons and times, we speak of power and dominions. We speak of different eras, rules and reign, and navigation through this definition of seasons and years.
Wema Bank's Managing Director and CEO, Maruf Oseni, delivered a passionate keynote address, reflecting on the bank's evolution from a regional lender to a national digital powerhouse. He highlighted Wema Bank's steadfast commitment to customer-focused innovation and sustainable banking practices.
We have a big and bold vision for Wema Bank. The most important imminent milestone is our return to the top tier of banking in Nigeria. We are not focused on trends and facts that will inevitably pass, and we will continue to push the envelope by leveraging technology to provide financial services that empower Nigerians and Africans everywhere to thrive.
The celebration dazzled with star power and heartfelt moments. Guests were treated to performances by top Nigerian artists, moving tributes from industry leaders, staff, and key stakeholders. A standout moment was the unveiling of Wema Bank's commemorative coffee table book, a visually captivating publication chronicling the bank's 80-year journey.
I bring the gratitude of Mr. President and the appreciation of a grateful nation. Thank you for the changes you have inspired, for the lives you have taught, and for the commitments you continue to pursue.
80 years means success, it means consistency, it's 80 years of innovation, and I'm proud to be a Wemanite.
80 years of great service, 80 years of seamless service, 80 years of impacting the community as well, also infusing entertainment.
Permit me to use the street language. If easy, run am. You know, I think in a short phrase that answers it. About 80 years is absolutely fantastic.
It was truly a night to remember for a brand that continues to shape Nigeria's financial story. Congratulations to Wema Bank on 80 groundbreaking years, and here's to many more chapters of innovation, impact, and inclusion. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Thank you, Bettina, and congratulations to Wema Bank. Outside Nigeria, top United Nations court has dismissed a case brought by Sudan, accusing the United Arab Emirates of breaching the UN Genocide Convention by arming and funding the rebel paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, in the country's civil war. The International Court of Justice said on Monday that it manifestly lacked the authority to continue the proceedings and threw out the case. While both Sudan and the UAE are signatories to the 1948 Genocide Convention, the UAE has a carve-out to the part of the treaty that gives the Hague-based court jurisdiction. In Togo, hundreds of protesters on Monday marched in the capital, Lomé, against changes to the country's constitution. The rally came a day after leader Faure Gnassingbe assumed a new role with no term limits. Gnassingbe, whose family has ruled Togo for nearly 6 decades, was sworn in on May 3 as the head of the majority in parliament held by his UNIR party. Opposition parties and civil society have criticized the move, describing it as a monarchical draft. Let's also tell you that Japan, China, South Korea, and the 10 Asian countries have agreed to enhance their regional financial safety net by launching a new lending facility. The initiative aims at swiftly responding to crises caused by pandemics and natural disasters. The finance leaders of the so-called Asian +3 group agreed at their meeting in Milan, Italy, on Sunday to establish the new facility under their currency swap arrangement known as the Chiang Mai Initiative Multilateralization. The CMIM, created after the 1997 to 98 Asian financial crisis, is designed to support regional financial stability by allowing members to tap currency swap lines. Crowds are gathering along the Mall in central London as the city prepares to mark the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, which commemorates the end of fighting in Europe during the Second World War. Among those present are families enjoying traditional cream teas and revelers continuing celebrations from the night before. The day's events are set to begin at midday. A military parade and a flypast by the Red Arrows will headline the commemorations. King Charles III, senior members of the royal family, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer are expected to attend.
And I think, here at Catterick, but also RAF Leeming, not too far away, there's a very strong serving population, veteran population, but also crucially, as a local MP, you really come to appreciate the sacrifice that everyone's families make for their partners, their spouses, to serve and protect our country. And whether it's their kids who are constantly changing schools, something I spend a lot of my time on as a local MP trying to support, all their partners and spouses whose careers are disrupted, and actually things things like this, initiatives like this, which bring people together and provide that support network for people as partners, I think is just so important, and that's something that you're seeing brilliantly here.
Very much so. Of course, we need to always remember. So we've got VE80 today to remember, but then there are other conflicts since that time. So going forward in the years to come, we will continue to remember the service of the armed forces community.
Business News is next after this break. Stay with us. Lekon is here with the business update. It seems Nigeria is going back to its roots with cocoa production, Lekon.
Oh yes, because for decades before now, it has always been a money spinner. Before oil, the oil boom came into being. But now a board is being set up, and that will see to the regulation and, of course, the improvement in cocoa production in the country. So we'll see where they will go with that. So I'll bring you the details during the course of the news. The Federal Executive Council has approved legislation to create the National Cocoa Management Board aimed at regulating Nigeria's cocoa industry. President Bola Tinubu led the approval meeting on Monday, as announced by Sunday Diary, the President's Special Advisor on Media and Communication. The NCMB will enhance Nigeria's position in the global cocoa market and support local farmers by overseeing cocoa plantation restoration, enforcing market regulations, and offering low-interest loans. Nigeria aims to increase cocoa production to 500,000 metric tons by 2025, competing with Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire for market share. The bill will soon be presented to the National Assembly for approval. Away from that, the Central Bank of Egypt reported a staggering 62.3% decline in the Suez Canal transit revenues on Monday. For the first half of the fiscal year 2024 to 2025, revenues totaled about $1.8 billion, a sharp decrease from $4.8 billion during the same period last year. The CBE attributed this downturn to a 52.2% reduction in the number of ships transiting the canal, as ongoing tensions in the Red Sea have led many commercial shipping companies to seek alternative routes. This decline raises concerns about the canal's economic impact moving forward. The S&P 500 opened the week lower, dropping 0.2%, while the Nasdaq Composite fell 0.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, however, gained 115 points. This decline puts the S&P 500 on track to end a 9-day winning streak, its longest in 2 decades. The drop was attributed to a 52.2% decrease in ship transits through the Suez Canal and ongoing trade tensions, including new tariffs announced by President Donald Trump. Despite initial losses, markets rebounded after positive service sector data. Investors remain cautious ahead of the Federal Reserve's policy meeting, with uncertainty surrounding tariff negotiations. Let's now talk about the equities market. Now, trading activities on the Nigerian equities market closed positive at the end of the day. Looking at the snapshot, the NGX All-Share Index increased to 106,698.50 from 106,042.57 recorded at the close of the previous trading day, showing a 0.62% in terms of the gain and indicating a year-to-date return of 0.70%. Also, market capitalization increased by 412 billion naira to 67.060 trillion naira from the 66.648 trillion naira recorded at the previous trading day's close. And also the market turnover, as we tracked, increased to 18.934 billion naira from 15.254 billion naira. We'll round off now with sectoral performance. Even as we see that the banking sector experienced a bit of decline, 1.62% is what we tracked. And in contrast, the insurance sector posted a solid gain of 2.69%. And the oil and gas sector also performed strongly, rising by 2.58%, the highest growth actually that we saw. Now, this suggests some sort of robust consumer demand as it is. So that's it on business stories that we have for you at this time. Stay with us, we still have more to come your way. I am Lekon Onobanjo.
Honey is here with sports update. Honey, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Felicity. In the world of sport, it's all about the invited junior athletes who have been invited to come shake up, of course, the National Sport Festival. Now, with just 11 days left in the 22nd National Sport Festival, dubbed the Gateway Games, kids of in Abeokuta, Ogun State, the anticipation it continues to soar as one of the most compelling storylines emerging is that of the invited junior athletes, IJA, as they call them. Dubbed the 38th state, and the team heading to the NSF comprises just over 100 teenage athletes selected from across Nigeria to compete against their more established counterparts in about 11 sports. The upcoming National Sport Festival, the IJA will compete in athletics, badminton, football, para-athletics, swimming, table tennis, wrestling, and weightlifting. These sports were strategically selected to align with Nigerian strength zones while preparing the next generation of stars for national and international contests. The Gateway Games 2024, running from May 16 to 30, is expected to host between 12,000 and 15,000 athletes across more than 30 sports, making it the largest coverage of the sporting talent in the country. Away from there, Kelechi Onwe's red card during the match against Aqua United has been overturned by the Nigeria Premier Football League after a successful appeal. The midfielder who was sent off in Uyo is now available for selection following a thorough review by the league's disciplinary board. The club defended the appeal using match footage, relevant laws, and technical analysis, which proved the decision was harsh. The NPFL upheld the appeal after professional conducted an independent review. In line with the league regulations, team can appeal red cards under certain conditions, and this case met the criteria. Olympic swimming legend Gary Hall Jr. has received 10 replica medals from the International Olympic Committee, IOC, after losing his originals in the Los Angeles wildfires. Of course, Hall, who won the medals across the Atlanta 1996, Sydney 2000 and Athens 2004 games, saw his home in Pacific Palisades completely destroyed earlier this year. The emotional medal replacement ceremony was held at Olympic House in Lausanne, Switzerland, and IOC President Thomas Bach presenting the medals to Hall. And that's it in the world of sport. I am Onyinyechi Obaro. The news continues with Felicity.
And for entertainment stories now, we have Sam Dandy in the house.
So much is happening in entertainment. Where do I even start? I mean, we're all looking forward to Didi's trial happening. You know, we've talked about this a lot of times. But I think what has a lot of Nigerians talking right now is Scales. Now, he's in the news and he's spoken up about his time in prison. Now, this is something that he's never talked about before, but this is interesting conversation because very dark man recently, we know, has, of course, been detained. And alone this year, Portable has had experiences being arrested, and even E-Money, which are socialites in Nigeria. Now, what he talked about might have been a little, you know, funny. He did explain how, while he was in the cell, he had to perform even to, of course, the inmates in that time. And I do think that that's a very interesting one. In an interview, he had recounted this, talking about his loyalty led to his arrest and how inmates recognized him and requested a performance. Now, to gain favor, Scales performed his hit songs like Shake Body and Emergency, which earned him sympathy and better sleeping conditions while he was detained. He described the experience as humbling and highlighted the poor conditions in Nigerian detention facilities. After his release, he returned with food for the inmates as a token of appreciation. I never thought, you know, we'll talk about this where celebrities, socialites are talking about their time, you know, arrested or behind bars.
Do we call them ex-convicts? No, they've not been convicted by any court. They were just arrested, just kidding. Yeah, it's a good one that he went back to show some appreciation.
I just think it's interesting, you know, because everyone's talking about the protest with very dark man, but you know what? I wish we had more stories, but for those who are aware, we follow the Didi story, and right now we know that jury selections have begun, and we're looking forward to, of course, they say about over 100 people were questioned, but don't worry, on eCentral we'll bring you all the details about all of that one as we get more updates. But those are definitely the biggest stories in entertainment. I am Sam Dandy.
That's all we have for you tonight. But before we go, here's a quick reminder of our top stories. In a major policy shift, the Federal Executive Council have approved framework mandating MDAs to prioritize local goods and services. Presidency has faulted AFDB's Adewumi Adesina's claim of Nigeria's retrogression since independence. We also brought you news that Togolese protesters have marched against constitutional changes that seek to keep President Faure Gnassingbe in power indefinitely. Send us your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen. We'd love to hear from you as well on social media. That's at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. Good night.